Yeah, we should be getting snow sometime next week. The mountains already have snow.
Uh-huh. I like to think, because I watch a ton of Deadliest Catch, that you're doing the crab fishing stuff out there.
I know
You
I went
ju-
with the Alaska Fit today. I got the Carhartt on, but
yeah.
uh,
Just go, you just
Deadliest Catch is
disappear for
crazy.
2 months out there.
Exactly.
All
Now with
right,
the
boys.
season going on.
Right, exactly. Okay, so speaking of seasons, we have the NBA season coming in less than a week. How you boys feeling about that?
Wait. Did we start recording?
Yeah, I already did.
Oh, is this part of the introduction or are we
Yeah,
just
I try
like,
to do more of a soft intro basically during
oh shoot, okay,
conversational,
sorry, I
but
didn't know. I thought we were just
no,
like,
I know that's my fault. I kind of
Uh,
sprung it on you. I said, "Screw it, we're just going to start right now."
Like,
This
do it
might even
again, do it
still be
again.
part of the beginning. I might just leave it all in.
okay.
Yeah, there we go. Mitch, how you feeling about the season coming up?
Pretty good, man. We're at the most exciting part of the fantasy basketball season, upcoming this weekend. We got our redraft league going for Angle. Uh, Everything in Dynasty is all set. Our rookie drafts are set. We just finished this Devy League draft, so ready to dissect it, especially because all three of our teams kind of went in different directions here. So some unique perspectives for you all.
That's right. Absolutely. So, welcome to the Angle Fantasy Basketball Podcast. First off, I'm your host, Andrew. We are here today to discuss the Ultimate Devy League. So, first, a big shout out to Noah Rubin. He is the head commissioner of this league. So a Devy League basically is we have the standard Dynasty League settings that we're all used to, but it includes a little bit of a twist where we can stash guys who are not even yet NBA draft eligible. So in this case, we can stash guys who would be part of the 2026 draft class and part of the 2027 draft class. So we are here today to talk about our three teams. If you are into Dynasty basketball, we just had a Dynasty rank update. It is up to date as of yesterday, October 15th. So this accounts for all recent injuries and transactions. All the 2025 rookie class is there. So that is free on our website. I will put a direct link to our rankings in the description below. We have a very, very special guest today. If you are on NBA Twitter, you are a fool if you do not follow Point Made Basketball, one of the best accounts out there, and one of the main runners of that account, Josh, and also a member of the Angle Dynasty League, is here today. One of the co-commissioners also with me. We help out Noah Rubin as part of the board in this league. Josh, how are you today, sir?
And we're doing good, man. It's good to see you. Good to catch up with the boys, talk fantasy basketball, just talk. Always happy to talk hoops in general, man. So thank y'all for having me on here.
Absolutely. We're here to shoot the shit today, talk a little hoops. This is gonna be a fun time. So I'm gonna pull up the league right now. We're gonna talk a little bit about some of just strategies going into this league like this one. We'll talk about where we drafted from. We'll take a look at our teams. And part of what we are also going to do today is we are going to discuss some of our favorite picks that other teams made. So not just reviewing ours, we're going to look into what the rest of the league did too, because this league is actually full of content creators. There's maybe like 5 or less people who aren't content creators and are instead just really trusted league mates of ours. So you'll be able to follow pretty much all of this league on Twitter, see a lot of great content that all the members of this league put out. So let's get into it right now. I know I was
Yeah,
looking
no.
at. I remember
Yeah,
seeing that there was like a split second where they put him at the like top ranking of the 2026 class and everyone freaked out about it. And then maybe like an hour or two later, he was back at like 4th or 5th again.
Oh, they put
Yup.
him back down on 24/7 Sports?
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I think they just bumped him up to 100, and by when doing that, they had like a glitch in the system that just put him on the top of the rankings because the other three guys were already at
Uh,
100, and so everyone just kind of latched onto that. I was like, I think it's just a glitch.
I see. Yeah, it seemed
that
like
makes
it was
sense
just a
then.
glitch. So we're referring to Nate Ament here, and that's someone we're going to go into further detail on in a little bit. So we are on
hmm
the homepage of the league right here. Lots of great names in here. Some, we got Matt Lawson, Dan Titus, Kayla Fonte is here. Both members of Dizzle Dynasty. All 4 members of Point Made Basketball are in here. We got Finn Cool in here. We got Dynasty Hoops HQ. We got NBA prospecting in here. plenty of other great content creators that are in this league. Lots of great dynasty minds all collaborating together to produce this. This is a 30-team league, actually. So again, drafting from the normal NBA pool and drafting players that are actually eligible for the 2026 and 2027 NBA draft. So with those stash picks, you just have to stash them in your minor slot. And when I refer to a minor slot, I'm referring to Fantrax. Fantrax is really the only platform where a league like this is doable. So with them stashed in the draft class, and with the 2026 and 2027 draft class being available in this pool, we all have our own set dynasty ranks that we use as a reference. But a lot of us, I mean, I know for us at Angle, we don't have the 2026 and 2027 draft class incorporated into here yet. So maybe, once you start getting lower down the ranks, maybe somebody who's ranked 150 might now be considered 170-ish or something, because we now have other future prospects that are added into the pool for us to work with here. Also, too, one thing that I noted about this league with its strategy, for starters, this is a weekly lineup league. So depth is not as important here, because once Monday hits, your lineup is locked in for the rest of the week. So I think what a good strategy is, some people went for, is having a killer starting lineup, couple of guys for depth, and then this is just a great draft and stash league. And one thing that I think might happen, I'll get both of your opinions on this, I feel like there's going to be very little trades in this league, just because of, one, the league's full of dynasty content creators and avid dynasty players. And with that weekly lineup setup, it makes this more of like a draft and stash type of league. So many of us got our guys in this startup draft process, and I can't imagine many of us trading them. We currently have 0 trades done so far. Josh, how do you think that's accurate? Do you think there'll probably not be too many trades in a league like this one?
I think I hear you on that. I think a lot of the trades, if they do happen, are going to be player for player or, drafted prospects for prospects. I think in regular dynasty leagues, you're going to see a lot of people that are contending and people that are rebuilding kind of trading those draft picks. But with us going 150 prospects deep, those draft picks just don't carry the same amount of value unless you're looking at guys in 2028 and above. Obviously, you're going to have people that rise up draft classes, people that went undrafted are going to go at the top of their class this year when we do our draft, but 150 prospects deep in the 2026, 2027 class is a lot of players off the board. So there's just not as much value there in terms of draft picks. So it's going to be a lot of player for player trades, I think.
That's a great point that I was going to bring up as well, too, is that with that being said, at least for these first 2 seasons, tanking isn't really a as good of an outcome as it is in other standard types of dynasty leagues, because majority of the top names of 2026 and 2027 are already off the board. It won't be until the 2028 draft class comes in where tanking can land you, someone in the top 4 of that draft class. So that is an absolutely great point to bring up, Josh. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start getting into our teams here. The first one we are going to look at is Mitchell's team, because Mitchell is lucky and got to pick in the top 10. So Mitchell, you were at pick 7. I was pick 25 and Josh was pick 30. So for you and I, Josh, I actually feel like if you are going to be a late pick in a league of this size, you want to be in that bottom 5, because not only do you benefit from the quick turn going into round 2, but us in that bottom 5 benefit the most from that 3rd round reversal, which is something that this league did indeed have. So the place you probably don't want to be is stuck exactly in the middle, where it's pretty long in between all of your picks, and you don't really benefit a whole ton from that 3rd round reversal. But Mitch benefited from a top 10 pick. So what I'm going to do here, we're going to pull up Mitch's squad in particular. Now, Mitchell, your first overall pick at number 7 was Cooper Flagg. And then, so you went pretty young, top two picks in the first 2. You had Cooper Flagg at number 7, Alex Sarr at pick 54 overall. That's pretty good value right there. And then this right here, this is just Mitchell's greatest hits. A lot of his favorite players. Jalen Green, Jalen Suggs is on this team. You got the ultimate mystery box in Hanson Yang. So cue us in here, Mitch. How do you feel about this squad that you put together?
Man, I feel pretty great. I mean, considering the top 4 is the standard Wemby, Luka, Jokic, and SGA type picks. And then I thought at pick 7, I'm going to get the leftover of Cade, Anthony Edwards, and Cooper Flagg. I wanted Cooper Flagg second out of the 3, But to my surprise, Amen Thompson went number 6. So I had that tough decision of taking either Cooper Flagg or Anthony Edwards, right? Someone who are both relatively young, but I thought, hey, I'd never had Cooper Flagg in a league. I traded him away in our Angle Dynasty League. So this was the perfect opportunity to draft someone I was extremely high on from the start. I believe he really came onto the public circuit and when he was like a sophomore in high school playing against like Cam Boozer, someone who is an exciting prospect in next year's NBA draft class, but he reclassified. So he's someone who doesn't have any weaknesses. He is a young cornerstone that I can build around. And I was more than happy to draft Cooper Flagg with my number 1 pick. I will say, though, for my second pick, I was, Andrew, you know this. I was talking to you with this upcoming pick so many times. I was like, should I just take my boy Jalen Green? I know that wasn't, I was probably going to get roasted for that pick in the chat. So I thought, okay, maybe I just take the best available guy on my board, Alex Sarr, and hopefully Jalen Green comes back to me because if you know me, I have Jalen Green in 7 out of my 7 dynasty leagues. He's my favorite player, as you can see. I have a framed jersey of him when he was with Team USA, numbered to 19. But yeah, that really solidifies my cornerstone is the Cooper Flag pick, Alex Sarr, who I think is gonna really make a name for himself this upcoming year. He's put on a lot of strength, a lot of physicality. Josh, I know you're a fan of his development over the years, and especially over Eurobasket and Summer League, he's actually sticking with his screens, which is impressive, which was one of the faults that he had coming into his draft process. And then Jalen Green, there wasn't a lot of scoring up until that point in the 80s. So I thought I could take a guy who has that upside to be a 25 point per game scorer. He's going to be on a blank slate here in Phoenix next to Devin Booker with a young squad. So hopefully he can showcase another level because he has improved every single year from a 9 category perspective. So Andrew, I'm curious, Josh, you too. What do you think of my big 3 here?
I'll let you handle that first, Josh.
I think just in terms of me compared to the general consensus, I'm a little higher on Alex Sarr than a lot of other people. I think, when you come in, your top 2, top 3 pick, like Alex Sarr was number 2 over to Washington, come in with a lot of expectations, especially when you got guys coming in the classes before, kind of just hitting the ground running. And 2024 was kind of looked at a draft class that was a little bit weaker anyways, especially at the top end. So just those things combined together and just Washington not really being a strong team. Very fun team to watch. I love covering Washington, but they're just not a very strong team. I think a lot of those deficiencies that Alex Sarr had as a rookie were kind of put under a microscope and a lot easier to pick at. And I think that kind of led to just an overreaction in terms of what that rookie year looked like for him. But I think with just him, he just turned 20 in April. It's one of those guys that's growing into his body. He got a lot of length, got a lot of feel, and those are things that you can grow in terms of your physicality, right? You're going to grow into that frame. You're going to add strength to your frame. You can tighten up that handle. You can understand where and how to stick to screens better. But just the feel that he has as a big man, just the ability to operate on the perimeter, the switchability as a defender. Love that. I love that pick right there at 54. I think that's good value. I'm a huge Jalen Green fan. I think we could see a little bit of him turning the other way in Phoenix. Just sucks that he's starting over with that hamstring injury, man. Those are just so finicky, so hard to recover from. But I mean, they're in no rush, so they could take their time trying to heal from that.
Yeah, and that was like super disappointing to hear about that because Andrew and I are going to the home opener for the Clippers and they're playing the Phoenix Suns. And it's unfortunate because Jalen Green played 182 consecutive games, and the time we actually buy tickets to watch him, he may not be playing. So a little unfortunate news there.
But we do get to see the Clippers' return of CP3. So whatever kind of standing O will be there for, honestly, the arena that he helped build. It's gonna be a pretty cool sight to at least see that. And then touching on your point, Josh, there is just something so fun about the Wizards right now. I know that they're not good, but they have so many fun players. Like, I make player videos. I made one of Denny when he was on the Wizards, Denny Avdia. I've already made one of Bilal and Alex Sarr, and I'm chomping at the bit to make one about Keyshawn George as well too. There's just something about like I'm not a Wizards fan or anything, but there's just something about the players on that team, especially for dynasty basketball. They're just so exciting right now. They're I don't know what it is, and they just took. I love Trey Johnson as well. That was one of my favorite members of the 2025 class. So a lot of good things going on in Washington. I hope that they're good soon. I would like to see that happen.
100%. Yeah, just in with Washington, if you follow me on Twitter, you hear me talk about them a lot. Wrote an article about them on our website. If y'all haven't, just check it out whenever you get a chance. But just, their team building aspect, that's what I love to see. Even though if they're not the best product right now, just their GM's approach to it. Dawkins said they want to arrive in the playoffs. They don't want to disappear. So just their approach, the patience that they have with it, the leash that they're giving their young guys to play, it's just you love to see it.
Absolutely, 100% agree with that. Now, Mitch, you got some other good names on here, like taking a gamble on the Clippers version of Bradley Beal. I think is an interesting play. That's pretty good value you got on Tobias Harris outside of the top 200. Somebody who could put up, pretty easily top 100 value in a 9-cat setting. I know he's older. But for a league like this one where you get to lock in your lineup for a week and stash your young guys on the bottom half right there, someone like Tobias is probably going to be a mainstay in your lineup. And like I think I already mentioned Lonzo Ball, or maybe I didn't mention him yet, but I think this might be the year of the big baller. Lonzo looks great in Cleveland. I would love to see both Lonzo and LaMelo in the playoffs this year. I think this is probably one of the first years where that's realistic because Charlotte does look a bit better. Health is a massive part of that. So if they could all stay healthy, Charlotte might be in play there just because the East is a lot weaker this year. And then, of course, the Cavs are great. So as long as Lonzo is healthy, we might have a good chance to see both of these brothers in the Eastern Conference playoffs. But Mitch, now let's talk about two. Of course, you can touch on some of the other players that I just discussed, such as Lonzo, but also cue us in on maybe a couple of your Devy stashes that you have for your squad here.
Yeah, for sure. So, I do want to touch a little bit on Hanson Yang or Yang Hansen,
Of
just
course.
because he is the Discord community league logo for our Devi League. So, I'm very excited for what he can provide. He's known as Chinese Jokic. He's not going to probably ever get to that level, but you never know. You never know. He just provides such a unique stat set for a big man. In the preseason, he's really stretching the floor. I think he already made, three or four threes in 2 games or so. So very excited for that. And with my strategy, I was really gearing towards that weekly thing, building a solid top 8 where I can kind of plug and play Hansen Yang or Yang Hansen, however you want to pronounce his name, in between with like Tobias or Bradley Beal on a kind of like a week to week basis. And then once I solidified that top 8, top 9 with Lonzo as like a upside flyer, I went into my Devi guys. So I thought, okay, I got my core roster in place. So let's go with some higher upside pieces. My first Devi pick was Seyon Keita. He is a 2027 draft eligible guy who recently had some. This is a placeholder, so it's not the same guy that you see on the screen, but he did recently have some visits to Duke, UConn, and I believe another blue blood school. So he's looking as potentially a top 3 center prospect for that class where centers are relatively scarce in terms of quality that you can find in a draft. So definitely high on him there at pick 277, where I think, fast forward 2 years when he's draft eligible, he could be a top 150 asset right off the gate. So he's a long-term stash for me just because I trust Duke's development for big men, as we've seen Kaman Malawach, Derek Lively, Mark Williams. They have a great development program there where we've seen in dynasty value, they all are in the top 100 pretty much off the gate. So hopefully I see the same return of investment for Seyon Keita. Then I went with Tomislav Ivisic, who is the better of the two brothers. He is going to be an upcoming junior. And Andrew, are we able to see Illinois? Are they coming to USC this year, or is
They
that
are.
Iowa?
They are.
Oh, they are.
Yes, they are.
Okay, so I'm hoping we can see him play and his twin play, just because I do have a little bit of an investment now. He's kind of been seen as like a late first round guy over the last 2 years, but he's continuing his development in college. So excited to see what he can do there. Went a little older. And then I want to touch on just two more of my Devy guys. The next one is Johann Grunlow, who's a German prospect who's draft eligible this year, but he may, you know, I don't know, classify for 2027 if this his freshman year doesn't go as planned. But he's a big man, German big man who can kind of stretch the floor, do a little bit of everything. Think of Maxi Kleber, someone who can protect and shot block, but also stretch the floor and pretty efficiently. Taking him at 384 feels like a steal just because of that fantasy friendly stat set. And then lastly, I kind of thought, oh, this is for shits and giggles. I'm just going to take Oscar Wembanyama and see if it sticks. I don't know how good he is, really. There's not a lot of tape or film on Oscar quite yet. But just really hoping that it's not like Alex Antetokounmpo type of deal where, he's nowhere close in terms of talent with his brother. Hopefully he has some of that work ethic that Victor possesses. And, I'm excited to see if he even becomes a top 200 asset for me moving forward just because of his name and, the bloodline.
I mean, the work ethic might carry over in the Wembanyama family because their sister is an absolute baller.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, very
She
good.
actually inspired Oscar to play and pursue professional basketball because Oscar before basketball was on the track to be a professional handball player, I believe. So that at least he has that hand-eye coordination that could translate into basketball.
All right, very, very good. Okay, so we are now going to move us down to pick 30, which is taking us to Josh's team right here. So, Josh went with a very fun first two picks. He started off with Devin Booker as his first overall, and then, of course, it turned right back to him at number 31, where he then took Dylan Harper. There's also some great Devy stashes as he has here. So you saw what you'll see with Mitch's team and then soon to be mine team. We waited a bit before we made our Devy picks, whereas Josh started to take some of those higher level Devy guys a lot earlier on. Great strategy to go by. There's a lot of flexibility of what we can do with this league. A lot of 2025 draft classes present on this team, but he, of course, went with the most value on the board possible for his pick, which was Devin Booker. And I, at 25, was closely considering Devin Booker as well. I even had a look at Dylan Harper as well. So walk us through this, Josh. How do you feel about this team? Let's go through some of your top picks here.
Perfect, man. Yeah, ended up with Book over there at my first pick at the end of the first round. My strategy actually initially, I was talking to my guys, so and Evan, Point Made, talking to them about figuring out what I was gonna do, just kind of based on my experience in other Devy leagues like Devy football, and like we said earlier, right? There's just no value, or it's hard to gauge value in terms of our draft picks. So I kind of wanted to contend going into this year, but just with every draft you're in, every dynasty league you're in, or every redraft, you just kind of go with what's on the board. Devin Booker was on the board for me. I went Devin Book, turned around and drafted Dylan Harper right after that. I was really hoping one of the top 26 guys would fall my way, but once the top three were drafted, I didn't feel comfortable going into that next kind of tier for me, which is it's a bigger tier in terms of you gotta see who's gonna really rise to the top behind that big three. So I felt more comfortable taking my boy Dylan Harper, who I rated pretty highly, number two in my draft class in my big board last year. Kind of got that superstar upside in terms of his draft grade. So I really like him. I think what we've seen from him so far in summer preseason and summer league is more of the same in terms of what he can offer, getting downhill, just really attacking the rim, just makes it look so effortless. He's splitting screen double teams, and just with that NBA spacing, it's just gonna really pop a lot more. I think in Rutgers, obviously, when you're not the top two guys, it's easier to focus on both H. Bailey and Harper. But NBA, when there's guys everywhere, shooters everywhere, that room to operate, his dynamic like rim pressure is gonna really pop. My third overall pick, I went with my guy Terran Stokes, top guy right now, slated in 2027. So the next draft class after this upcoming one. My place holder for Terran Stokes, my boy Trey. I actually grew up with my boy Trey over here in Anchorage. He's playing in Northern Arizona right now. So
Oh,
super
that's
cool
cool.
dude. Just glad to have on my roster. Just a small little tidbit over there. But yeah, Trey's first year over in Northern Arizona gonna be fun to watch. Um, Outside of that, I kind of went on completely opposite from my initial strategy, which was to contend this year. Just really started doing what you do in a dynasty league. You kind of take your guys, kind of swing for upside, especially when in a dynasty league, like we said, it's really hard to rebuild your way in terms of just draft picks. But there's always going to be people that rise to the top, I think. So even if I'm putting myself in position to have a bottom five pick, there's going to have those risers in the draft class that you could take a swing on and kind of raise your floor. But you also want guys with a lot of high upside. My boy Yegor Dimon from BYU. I know you guys like him a lot too. I think his landing spot in Brooklyn gives him a pretty good kind of pathway to kind of take off there. I really like what they're doing in Brooklyn. I think a lot of people criticize their draft class, but prioritizing playmaking at every position is kind of the best thing you can do in the modern NBA. And Diego got that size, 6'9", almost barefoot, 6'9", with point guard skills. You love it. Love to see it. Follow up with my boy Caleb Wilson from UNC, who I think could be a riser. Like I said, that tier behind the top three is super unknown, but I think Caleb Wilson got some playmaking skills that he can tap into, two-way playmaking as a rim protector as well, and just a lot of switchability. He grew, I think, 4 or 5 inches late in his career, so he was playing a wing. They grew about 6'10", 6'11". So he's got just that natural quickness that come with that late growth spurt. Followed him up with some other Devy guys who's been linked them. Oh, my boy Caden Boozer, man. I couldn't get my guy, Big Booze, so I got a little Booze in Caden. And I think Caden's actually got the potential to kind of rise into one of the top point guards. I have him top 10 on my preliminary big board right now for 2-6. Really like him a lot. Same with Holt, who I think is the number two guy right now in 27. Um, but you really never know a few years from now. Just throughout the draft, I went high upside, took whoever was there, just young, kind of fit in with my timeline, and just hope to kind of rebuild where I can in the draft and really bet on some of these upside guys following through. Trusting my evaluation there.
I 100% agree with what you said about the Nets. People, people bad talk those picks a little bit, but playmaking at every position is vital. They did that. They even got a playmaking center, so they got a bunch of playmakers and they got an athletic wing, which obviously athletics wings are always a premium in the NBA. So I want to kind of maybe focus on those two picks in a row that you just made. At 301, Drake Powell. So in our Angle Dynasty ranks, it's an average ranking between the three of us. I'm the only one that's ranked Drake Powell each time. I like Drake Powell a lot. I think he is going to carve out a great role for himself, maybe even pretty early on, but I think he will be an integral part of this Nets team moving forward. He offers a lot of what they don't really have too much of. They have a lot of playmakers, but they don't really have that super athletic, Peyton Watson type guy that they're going to stick on the other team's best player. And then another part of what we're going to do today is we're going to discuss picks that were very interesting to us, whether they were great value, bad value, or just a player that we want to talk about. And I said we can't really discuss our own teams because we're obviously going to discuss those in this section right here. But I do got to give a huge shout out to taking Tristan da Silva well outside of the top 300. That is way too low for Tristan da Silva. Apparently, nobody watched Eurobasket because he looked great for Germany. I'm well aware that the Orlando rotation is crowded, but they are still going to need da Silva's services to some degree. Wouldn't you agree with that?
100%. I think that Tristan da Silva, a lot of what they're doing, especially off the bench, is kind of relying on that internal growth from their young guys. Da Silva, AB, Jet Howard, who's kind of really struggled to break in the rotation. But Da Silva, he really kind of just slides into the role that Paolo and Franz have whenever they're sitting. He's just that big uh, jumbo ball handlers that they love over there in Orlando. Great presence off the ball too with his shooting. But he can put the ball on the floor, attack the rim, and then he's got that switchable defense too that they love to see.
Absolutely. And
So,
that's someone, too, you can start in your starting lineup right away, too.
so Josh, I know that you came into this draft thinking that you were going to compete, and you took Devin Booker really with your first pick because admittedly the value was just way too good to pass up. But now that you've kind of drafted your team and you've kind of retooled and pivoted towards a more Devy focus and upside focus type structure, do you have any immediate plans with Devin Booker? Are you looking to kind of just ride him out? He's in for a huge year without KD. He's going to soak up all the usage. Are you looking to sell? Or do you think he's still young enough to kind of build around this core you're building?
kind of crazy when you think about how long Book's been in the league now. Just seeing him come out of Kentucky and just really grow into the player he is. But he's that vet now. He's definitely that veteran presence on this team right here that I built outside of my guy Ben Simmons down there at 540. But with that, I think just entering any dynasty league, I just don't have an idea until we get there. I know when we get closer to the trade deadline, some offers are going to come through as people really push for that championship. Because winning that inaugural chip is pretty dope to have, especially in a league with so much, talented content creators and people that really know their stuff in hoops. We love to see that. So I have him there in terms of that value, like y'all said. It's really hard to pass up on him on 30, and I feel like anyone else in that range, I kind of would have just been reaching on, in terms of just pure value. And so just having him there, being able to flip him for assets, but him also still being 28, he'll be at the tail end of his prime if I'm ready to contend and stuff. But just like having him there.
All right, very good. So now we're going to move up to my team. So I picked at 25 overall. So one thing I'm always very vocal about is trying to get my centers as early as possible, just because obviously there's always such a big quality drop off as you go down the list here. So I started off my draft with Domantas Sabonis at 25. With Sabonis, obviously, a very full stat set. You get the great rebounds, you get the assists, pretty decent scoring, not like a top level score, but definitely above average, strong field goal percentage. Not the best stocks guy though, not the best defensive guy, but just that those amounts of assists with the high double-digit rebounding out of the center spot is great value. In addition to that, Sabonis is 29 years old. Okay, so he's going to turn 30 at the end of this upcoming season. So still well within his athletic prime. It's not like he's someone who really relies a lot on athleticism to do what he does. So I expect his career to go pretty late. Like, even think about his dad. His dad was playing it well into his late 30s and absolutely killing it, even when he was over here in the NBA. So I think he's got a few more years left in the tank performing at this level. But somebody who's performing still at a good level, but maybe has a little bit less years left than Sabonis is Anthony Davis. That's who I took at 36 on the quick turn to me back in round 2. Davis was actually also someone I potentially considered at 25, but Sabonis kind of won out that battle for me with age, as well as the assist profile that he has, gives me a little bit more flexibility. But what Sabonis lacks in stocks, I got back with Anthony Davis. So now 2 double-digit rebounders. Anthony Davis is a great scorer, great defensive player, and he provides those out-of-position assists as well, too. Because one thing I did likely expect to happen in this draft, a draft that's full of dynasty content creators, is I expected a pretty heavy emphasis on youth to happen. So I was looking to see, especially in a weekly lineup league like this one, how many of these older, really high-producing vets could fall to me, because my goal coming into this was to try my absolute best to win the inaugural championship. So I started off with a 1-2 of Sabonis and AD. That takes care of 2 centers right away. We only have 1 starting center slot, so one of the AD will probably be in my forward slot, but if one goes down, I do have the other one. But then comes pick 66. So this is in the 3rd round reversal. This is where I had Kevin Durant fall to me. Because Sabonis and Davis, Davis, I got a little bit of value on that. Sabonis is probably around that value for 25 for most. I know we at Angle have him a bit higher than that, but some others have Sabonis around the 20s. But Kevin Durant at 66 I would think is around 20 spots below what his value should be at. I know once we have the 2026 and 2027 class incorporated, like I mentioned, you maybe bump some of these guys' regular rank spots down like 10-ish or so on the early portion of the draft, and then the later you go, you bump it by 20, 30, maybe even 40 spots, something like that. But at 66 in the 3rd round, this is someone who should be going probably in the top 50. This is another top 10 producer on a yearly basis. So to get Sabonis, Anthony Davis, and Kevin Durant, feel very, very strong about that with my start for competitive-wise. I know I kind of got some reactions when I was able to land Durant in the 3rd round. Some were saying it's a scary combination. Others, I think it was one of your guys at Point Made, said it's a, team boring, which I get that perspective as well, because it is a little boring. It kind of feels like some redraft guys here. Didn't go with too much youth quite yet, because then I also took Mikal Bridges at my pick at 115. So that's my top 4 right there. And then one of my first picks on the younger side, I took Christian Brown at 126 overall. For us, for our recent Dynasty Rank update, he's in the top 100 for us. I believe he's in the low 90s, like 92, something around there. And our 3rd member of Angle, Braxton, is a massive, massive fan of Christian Brown. He expects his assists to rise a bit this year. So I know his efficiency was absolutely insane last year, and it's pretty possible he might take a little bit of a hit with that this year. But if he takes a little bit of a hit with that and then adds more assists to his profile, I'd be pretty happy with that. So I was pretty thrilled to get Brown at 126. And then the next guy, we can all talk about this guy for a little bit here. 175, I took Walter Clayton Jr. So this was the star of the national championship Florida Gators team from this past March Madness tournament. I know you saw him in person, Mitch, and I know you are a big proponent of him taking the starting spot over the likes of Keontae George, Isaiah Collier for the Utah Jazz. So just tell us a little bit how you feel about Walter Clayton Jr., Mitch.
Yeah, very excited about Walter Clayton Jr. He is a really efficient shooter, something you can't really say about Keontae George and Isaiah Collier, especially when you don't want them necessarily stretching the floor and facilitating the rock for an offense that needs a primary initiator. Additionally, Walter Clayton kind of just provides a little bit of everything. He does have that playmaking upside, leading a national champion in the NCAA tournament. I know that the big appeal of an Isaiah Collier is the assist numbers, but you're at the detriment of high efficiency stats, high turnovers, something that Walter Clayton Jr. doesn't really provide. So he really is the best of both worlds in terms of shot making of a Keontae George, but also the playmaking of an Isaiah Collier. So with that being said, he kind of just fits in long term for the Utah Jazz and their immediate future. I don't know what goes past this season because they can definitely take again, and maybe they get the top three pick and they end up getting a Darren Peterson. But the lottery odds have not been in favor for the Utah Jazz. Every single year they fall under their projections. So um, this really could be the year, but I really love that pick for you, Andrew, at 175, just because if we see peak Walter Clayton Jr., we can see maybe like a Jamal Murray light at like 18 points, 4 rebounds, and 5 assists on pretty good shooting splits. So super excited for you there, and we already know he has that alpha mentality. He's not afraid of the big moment, and he's a very fantasy friendly guard at 9 category leagues.
Awesome. Very good. So, to round out the rest of my starters, I think it's a start 7 league, if I remember correctly. I have Andrew Wiggins, and then later on, I took him at 186, and then later on in the draft at 295, I grabbed Dennis Schroeder, who for now is expected to start for the Sacramento Kings. So that's what my starting seven is. A depth pick that I made was Jaime Jaquez. I think he looked a lot better towards the end of last season. There was just weird rotations going on with the Miami Heat in general. He was in Spo's doghouse for a little bit during last year, but then he erupts with a 40-point game at the end of last season and has looked great in preseason so far this year. So the hope is that Jaquez is now out of the doghouse and can kind of recapture the hype that he had during his rookie season when, at least for us, he was kind of approaching the top 100 of our dynasty ranks and then has fallen off a little bit since then. So kind of betting on the rise to happen again here. But there is some youth that I sprinkled into these first 10 picks here, or first 11 picks, because the guy I want to talk about is at 11 too. But the first one that I made at pick 8, or my 8th pick, this is at 235 overall. I took a high-ranking prospect who is currently injured and will probably miss all of this year, maybe come back at the very end, and that's Elijah Arenas. This is Gilbert Arenas' son. He's currently playing for the USC Trojans. So this is someone who was ranked within the top 20 of the ESPN recruiting class. This is a 5-star prospect. He didn't play at like a really high-level high school. I've watched a lot of videos of Gilbert talking about that, how he specifically wanted to put him in a worse high school so that he's forced to be the focal point of the team where he's getting double team, triple team, and still trying to put up, 30-point games every now and then, things like that. That was kind of actually was a purposeful thing that they did with him. And the same thing might happen for him with USC because they're not great right now. But I want to get your opinion, Josh. And if you don't like him, feel free to be honest about it. You will not hurt my feelings. How do you feel about Elijah Arenas?
Talk to about Elijah sometimes on Twitter. And one thing I want to see out of him, I know he's hurt this year, right? This coming year.
Correct.
He's out
Yeah, he
for a
tore his
year.
meniscus.
Yeah, so he always felt kind of more of a multi-year college guy for me, just because I really want to see him develop that bag. Like when you're playing in a smaller high school and you're kind of the main focal point, you're not going to be that unless you're really that top dog, high level perimeter scorer at the NBA level. And even at the collegiate level, we see a lot of guys that are that guy in high school not become that guy at the collegiate level, just because you got guys with a lot more size, you got a lot guys with a lot more physicality. But I think it's kind of a blessing in disguise with Elijah Arenas being able to kind of take that year to kind of build his body up, kind of add to that frame, add to the strength, get time invested into his bag with a collegiate staff around him. And he already grew up with an NBA family, so he had access to a lot of that training growing up. But I think he's one of those sneaky guys in that draft class. If he goes in 2-7, which is a little bit weaker, and he really pops in that year that he's healthy in the 2026 collegiate season, he could really sneak up that 27 draft class.
My hope is that he waits until 2027. I hope he doesn't do like a shade and sharp and just enter this draft class
Hmm.
anyways and see if someone will take him. I would love to see him put in a year at USC. Also, I guess this is more of a selfish reason. Mitch and I, we do live scouting vlogs for players that come to play in our area, and we were fully set this year because we go to multiple USC games per year because they're one of the closest colleges to go see some college basketball at for us. We were so set to do a vlog on Elijah Arenas, and then he got injured. So if he stays for another year, we'll get that opportunity again. And like you said, build that body up, get used to playing against bigger competition. I do love that he's in the Big Ten now too, because he will face some solid teams like Purdue, like Iowa. There's going to be both of the Michigans. So he's going to have some solid competition to go up against once he is healthy and ready to go. The other young pick that I made, this was my 11th overall pick at 306, was Hugo Gonzalez. Hugo, I've seen you guys tweet about him a few times, Josh. I've seen he's been kind of making the rounds during preseason because not like, blowing us away with like a 20-point game out of nowhere or something like that, but he just looks like he really knows what he's doing. He's someone who might hit the ground running for the early for the Celtics, whereas a lot of us viewed him as a potential, maybe even a stash pick, maybe someone who might spend some time with the main Celtics, but he's been holding his own so far, and he just has that. I talked about this with Zach from Dizzle Dynasty, that ruthless aggression, to coin that John Cena phrase. And that's why maybe you've seen Zach and I send that meme back and forth to each other whenever Hugo Gonzalez does anything cool. So that's one I'm very excited about as another guy for the future. Another Devy pick I made was Miles Bird out of SDSU. I really like him. And then my other Devy picks that I made were at the end here. That was kind of my plan, was to get maybe one or two Devy guys I really like early on or in the mid part, and then just fill out the rest at the end. One strategy I also went for, taking really old guys like Brooke Lopez and Chris Paul. The only reason why I did that is because eventually we are going to need to move guys off of our main roster and move guys from the Devy slots onto the main roster. I imagine in this league that consolidation, doing 2-for-1 trades, is probably going to be pretty tough to pull off. So what I did was basically have some built-in open roster spots. Chris Paul is in his last year right here, or right now, I mean. So after this year, he's gone. And whoever from my Devy spots is ready to move up gets to move up into his spot. The same concept kind of applies for Brooke Lopez here too. So as of right now, they'll act as depth for me if somebody gets hurt. And then in about a year or two, they'll be retired and I'll drop them out. And whoever's ready to move up will get to move up at that point. So kind of just, because I'm new to a Devy league as well. So it's kind of just something I wanted to see if that works out. Because I can imagine the 2-for-1 trade or consolidation type trades will probably be pretty hard to pull off in leagues like this one. Guys are probably going to be pretty stingy about dropping somebody that they don't want to drop, especially because in this weekly format, they don't have to drop them. They can just stash them and they got their, regular starting 7 guys that they're going to stick with. So now what we're going to do, we are going to each talk about 3 picks that were interesting to us. So I know I mentioned earlier it's our 3 favorite picks. That's maybe not the right word. It's more so interesting. So this is either a pick that we really like the value, perhaps we don't like the value that much. So we're going to start from the highest ranking guy that we have listed here and work our way down. So the highest ranking one that we're going to discuss first, this is somebody that Josh wanted to discuss. This pick was made by Matt Lawson at number 24 overall, and that's going to be Darren Peterson. Josh, what are your thoughts on Darren Peterson?
Guy, Rock Chalk, Jayhawk, Darren Peterson, number one guy on my board. Been that way for a while. Going to his senior year, drafted by the big dog himself, Matt Lawson. Just want to give a shout out to Matt Lawson, man. When we first hopped on his Twitter, we had like 6 followers. built up our way. Matt Lawson was one of the ones that kind of welcomed us into the dynasty space. So a really big shout out to him, kind of helped paving the way for us to kind of get to where we're at now. But with Darren Peterson, man, I said it when he got drafted in the chat, like that's a steal at 24. And it's kind of crazy to be able to say that someone that we haven't even seen play at the collegiate level is a steal at 24. But just for Darren Peterson himself, I really think he's a top 20, top 15 dynasty asset already. If you have a chance to tank this year, this is a really good year to tank in a dynasty league because those guys at the top end. But Darren Peterson, arguably one of the best guard prospects in the past 2 decades. Like he's that good in terms of his ability to play with pace. He's not over reliant on his athleticism like you see out of a lot of young guys in the high school level. But at the same time, he's like a borderline elite athlete as well. Great wingspan for a guard. He considers himself more of a point guard, so he's not just a scoring type dude. And I think you're going to really see a lot more of that at the Kansas level now that he doesn't need to be the centerpiece of his offense like he was for at the high school level. He's really that guy, man. I really love Darren Peterson. I'm really excited to see him hoop. I'm glad he's hooping for my favorite college team too.
To go back to the beginning of your point, that's so cool that also happened to you guys. So I guess, big shout out to Matt Lawson as well, because when we first started back in 2023, that was the first guy to retweet all of our stuff. That was the first guy to add us into dynasty circles. So huge shout out to the big dog, Matt Lawson, for helping out, the little guys who really want to start, doing some dynasty content creation. And look where we both are at now. And that's a huge thank you to him, absolutely. And I know that he and Noah Rubin made a video together about their teams in this league as well. So go check that out. I think that'll be on the Old Man Squad Network YouTube channel where you can see that happen. I know Noah and Matt collaborate together quite a bit. So definitely give them a follow. Watch their work if you have not already. We're going to take it to our next guy here. Number 35 overall. This was made by one of your guys, Josh Socratic, one of the Point Made members. This is somebody that Mitchell wanted to talk about, Nate Ament. Tell us about Nate, Mitch.
So this was more so an open floor discussion for me because I've seen some clips of Nate Ament, but I wanted to get a better understanding and hopefully we can get that for our viewers today, just because he did get selected 8 picks after the quote unquote big three that has been solidified over the last year or so. Big three meaning Darren Peterson, AJ Debonsa, and Cam Boozer. So having him around that like 8 to 10 range from those other guys is pretty, I mean, in terms of like draft value, that's pretty close, right? But is he actually perceived to be that valuable is my question, just because you kind of see Nate as that fourth guy in the draft, but there are conversations whether he is actually a better prospect than a Mikel Brown or a another guy Socratic, your boy just took, Chris Sinak. They're all kind of in that same tier. Tonde Yesufu, the guy that Noah Rubin selected, who plays similar to like maybe a Lou Dort or Anthony Edwards type of player. So I'm kind of like curious, Josh, because I know you follow these upcoming draft class a lot more closely than Andrew and I. Can you tell us a little bit more about Nate Ament and if that pick is justified at 35th overall?
For me, with Nate Ament, that's some guy that I was looking at personally at 31, but with Harper there, I took Harper. That was a no-brainer to me. But with Ament, I think just taking in with what Soak did in his first pick, where he took what was that? He take Cam? No, he took AJ, I think, right? And then Evan took Cam. But with him taking AJ at that
Yeah, he
first
took
pick, I
AJ
really think
first.
he wanted to lean into that full heavy high-end Devy approach from jump. Nate Ament, he's one of those guys you see is that prototypical guys that you fall in love with at the high school level just because of the tools. Like the tools are just popping, right? You 6 foot 10, super light frame at the high school level, but apparently he's grown about 20 pounds since then. Everyone makes those reports, right? Like these guys gain 10, 15 pounds. But when you get into that collegiate training program, it really does make a big difference. So apparently he weighs about 207 now. So 6'10", 207 with a lot of that fluidity and feel that you love. And if anyone follows me on Twitter, I talk about Matas Buzelis any chance I get because he just has that feel and that fluidity that pops, right? And even if the shooting wasn't there, there's things that you can pop kind of criticize him on when he was at the G League Ignite. There's just so much potential there. With Ahmed, I think it's the same thing. You see a bunch of potential, and in this league, when you're already kind of putting yourself behind the bar and you're chasing, when you start with a guy like AJ, I think you just lean heavily into that bet on the potential and just trusting in this thing. I think, like you guys said, and like I said earlier, you look at 10 big boards for 2026, you'll probably see 10 different guys at the fourth spot. And I meant he got one of those potential where he could slide into the top three if everything hits, but you never know.
Yeah,
So
with Ahmet, he's definitely the most dynamic prospect after the top three just because of that length. He has those guard skills for someone who's 6'10". It's just we don't know if it's all going to come together at that next level. But in terms of a prospect, he's everything you want to look for, especially uh, for like a stat set perspective in fantasy. Just because all those like rangy forward guys always become some of the best fantasy contributors for years to come.
speaking of Modest Buzelis, that is the next one that we're going to discuss. So this is something that Josh wanted to discuss. And, the Krispy Kreme is open. Get ready for the glaze session that's about to happen right now, everybody, because all three of us absolutely love Modest Buzelis. But first off, shout out to Finn Cool. He is the one who took Modest. I hope I pronounced the last name correctly, Finn. Follow him on Twitter. He does a ranking system of the best two-way G League players that are available. For me, as a deep league dynasty player, super helpful resource. I really love that he does that. He's honestly one of the only guys that does do that. And that's one of my favorite things to do, pulling somebody off the waiver wire, pulling off somebody who was undrafted and having it turn into value in the future. Think about your late 50s picks in like Toumani Camara, your undrafted Austin Reeves, guys who have to spend a couple of years in the G League and make their way up like your Scottie Pippen Juniors. Those are the types of guys that Finn's going to be tapped into. So make sure you follow his work. I really like what he does focusing on those deep league guys. It's unique. I don't really think anybody else does that, but 70 overall, Modest Buzelis. Value-wise, it's pretty bang on with where at least we have him within our dynasty ranks. But again, let's just talk about this because for the pre-draft process, Mitchell and I had Modest as the third overall prospect on our board. But you, Josh, had him at number one. So tell us about that. How high are you on Modest?
Incredibly high on Titus. I think even in that draft, that's why I was so shocked. This is a draft where people are always talking about how there's no high end upside guys. There's so much guys with swing skills. I think Buzelis at 6'10" with that athleticism, he had almost 40-inch vert. And just the ball handling that you have at 6'10" is just with the wingification of the league, like people say, like this is that guy. So yeah, I had him number one, had him in the same tier as Alex Sarr, and then below that I had Steph Castle and Zachary Sachet. So he's up there. My top four is pretty standard in terms of that. But I think Buzelis, what really made him pop is that, like I said, it's just a combination of ball skills, the feel, the fluidity with his footwork and his ball handling, how he's able to put all those things together and use his athleticism. He's not very dominant on ball. Like you play alongside Josh Giddey really well. Is just a beast in transition. Really good at off-ball movement, understanding where to be as a cutter. So even if that shot didn't translate, which it really has, I really bet on the shot because going straight from the high school level to the G League Ignite, which like admittedly is super bad at development and putting their guys in position to succeed through their development process that's a big jump in terms of that 3-point line being pushed back. So with that, just his strength issues were super visible at the Ignite level. He's getting bullied in the post and everything, but even at the NBA level now that he's put on some weight, added some strength, you could see him really growing as a defender, both on the perimeter, both an interior with his shot blocking. I think for the most part, he led the Bulls in shot blocking, even though he played less minutes than a lot of other guys. He didn't really pop until halfway through the season when he got a longer leash. So that's my guy, man. Number one guy. I could talk to him forever, but I want to make sure I get some space for y'all.
And that's, I made the player videos that I do. That was one of the favorite ones that I did was on Modest. I did that on the end of his rookie season. In there, I show his exact stats from February 1st onwards. So I can't remember exactly what they were off the top of my head, but if you want to see what they were, go check out that video because I'll probably link it at the end of this one to continue the Modest Glaze sesh for anybody who wants to keep going into that. But one point that I made, I'm going to ask you this question, Mitch. I said that Modest is pretty likely going to be the best scorer out of the 2024 draft class. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I could definitely see it. He's showcasing that very well in the preseason. He's super dynamic. He's evolving his three-point shot. And what's really impressive about Matas is despite his frame, he's one of the most tenacious dunkers in contact that you'll ever see. It's just so impressive with the ferocity that he provides at the rim and providing that rim pressure. You really don't see, and it really has parallels to like an Amen Thompson in contact or Giannis Antetokounmpo. So shout out to Modest. I think he's going to be great. I think his scoring is going to eventually evolve into like a 24 to 26 point per game scorer in his prime. And we may even see him crack like the 18-20 mark his sophomore year. And usually players that are quote unquote raw or developing their shooting skills, they don't pop until like year 3 or 4. So we're already seeing these flashes in preseason. We saw it in summer league. So I think Matas is really able to make that next step. And I remember, Andrew, when we had Matas in like the 70s, when we first, I believe, put out our rankings with the 2024 draft class, people called us crazy, right? Like, why is Matas Buzelis so high? He hasn't shown anything yet. But we were just big into the tools and his work ethic and development. I like to listen to these pre-draft interviews just to kind of see where these prospects like headspace is at, whether they're eager to learn, and Modest definitely is that type. I listened to him when he was interviewing with The Ringer with KOC back in the day, and his mindset really popped to me, and that's a big indicator that he is looking to improve, and he acknowledges his faults, which is the number one thing, is acknowledge where you have gaps for improvement. And Modest is very self-aware. I think he's going to eventually end up being in our top 50 pretty soon, especially if we continue to see that development in his game.
Very good. Very, very good. Okay, so I'm going to go slightly out of order with this next one, but it's kind of just so we can get more of an alternative order here. So I'm going to go now to pick 108. First off, huge shout out to my guy Zach from Dizzle Dynasty. Make sure to follow them if you're not already. They have their own dynasty ranks as well. You should be looking at as many dynasty ranks as possible if you're ever trying to evaluate draft picks, trade offers that are made to you. You go to as many sources as you can. There's great dynasty minds out there, such as Zach. Zach at number 108 took Isaiah Hartenstein. I was very vocal in the chat about this being absolutely insane value. His angle rank for us is at 65. Even if you add on 20 spots to account for some of the 2026 and 2027 draft class, that's still 85. So he has got, 20 to 40 spots of value here with Hartenstein. Way, way too low of a pick for him. Great value for Zach. This is a starting center for a championship caliber team. Excellent 9-cat stat set. He's still 27 years old, so entering or maybe just now in his physical prime. He's got a few years left at this level. Quality centers are hard to come by as well. That's something that you want to get as early as possible in drafts like this one. And Zach was able to wait until what round was this right here? Round 4 to grab a very, very solid starting center in Isaiah Hartenstein. And I mean, he's not going to be a crazy block source. It's not like a Miles Turner or a Jaren Jackson Jr. type of block source, but he does have above average stocks numbers, 1.8. So I think he was at 1.1 blocks and zero point 0.7 steals last year. So decent, better than somebody like a Sabonis. And he only took 2 free throw attempts per game, near 70%. So he's not going to tank your free throw percentage like a Jakob Poeltl would, for example. And you get those above average out of position assists, 3.8 assists per game as a center out of your center spot. Huge value at a 9 category setting. So it's not like he's dependent on OKC for this type of value. We saw him be successful for 2 other franchises already. So it kind of blew my mind that he fell this low, but props to you, Zach, for capitalizing on that one. That was a great pick with Hartenstein. Okay, so now we're going to go back into order again. We are going to be on pick number 100. This was made by MT Lazarus. He took Bennett Sturts. This is one of the players that's going to be coming out of Iowa for this draft class. And this is somebody that you wanted to talk about, Mitch. Tell us about Bennett Sturts, how you feel about this pick here.
So, to be honest, I don't know how I feel about this pick because Bennett Sturts was he's going to be 23 years old coming onto his first game in the NBA season next year. He is a senior. He's a transfer from Drake. But with Bennett, he provides some pretty unique stat sets that, you think of someone like a Tyrese Halliburton who has really good assist numbers, great efficiency coming out of college. He has high steal numbers as well. But I just don't know, given the availability on the board at the time. This one's perplexing to me just because I see the vision that MT Lazarus has with him, and it's not very often that a senior or an upperclassman gets taken within the top five, which is kind of like the similar value range of like a Trey Johnson here, a Con Knipple, those type of players from this year's draft class. So I'm not entirely sure on the translation there, but I see the vision, I see the stat translation. He's someone who a lot of draft analysts believe is going to be a top 5 to 10 pick. But in terms of like a dynasty setting, I just don't know. I mean, Josh, can you give me some insight on Bennett Sturts? And, despite his age, is there still that upside that he can provide similar to some of the guys drafted around this range, like a Trey Johnson?
One of those guys, I think Bennett Starr's just I think it's kind of a weaker point guard class. But if he really emerges and showcases that he can do some of the stuff that he did at Drake, where he had like close to 6 assists, just 2 turnovers a game, and he was the main guy at Drake. So a lot of guys were honing in on him. And he was shooting about 40% from three, I think 50% from the field. So a lot of efficiency, really clean game. If you can really showcase and bring that stuff to Iowa, you can really emerge. Like I bet on Caden Boozer into emerging into being that top guy, one of those top point guards. If Bennett Starks could do that, I could see that as well. And one of those guys in this draft class that being older can kind of hit the ground running, especially from the point guard position, which is one of those positions that's most difficult to adjust to at the NBA level. But then you also have kind of like what Con Canoople has in terms of being able to play off ball with his shot making, being able to complement another primary ball handler. Like if you insert him kind of in that Desmond Bane role, where you have a downhill guy like John Morant, then you have Bennett Sturts being able to space, but also be able to play make and create as well to kind of take some of that pressure off. John Morant is one of those things I bet. Obviously, at 100, I personally probably would not have picked him at 100, but I think that's the whole point of this Devy Dynasty draft. And my guy MC, remember when you went viral for that Jared McCain tweet? Cursed my boy. I remember that.
That's true. He did have that tweet get posted out by some major outlets. That was pretty cool to see. And there is some other guards that went pretty comfortably after Sturts. Like for example, our boy Mark C from Sports Ethos. Shout out to you, Mark. You're awesome. He got LeBaron Phelan at 169. Brian, the other half of Dizzle Dynasty, got Braylon Mullins at 158. So there were some other guards, and then of course too, Trey Johnson went immediately after Bennett Sturts. So we'll see how this one plays out, especially with the age factor involved here. But like Josh said, this is a weak upcoming point guard class, so this one might pay off here. But we're gonna move
One of
down
those things too is,
Go ahead.
let me just circle on that Bennett Sturts pick is like being able to say that I bet on some guy and I was right in a league full of other analysts just feels so good. So and I think that's something that we did with a lot of our guys. We picked our guys, whether the value was there or not, across the league, just to be able to be flexible. Like, oh, I was right. You know what I mean? Like that's why I talk about Maz Buzela so much, because I could showcase my little big board and be like, oh, look who had him number one. You know what I mean?
You're
So if he's
100%
right on
right.
Bennett Sturts, then he can make a video a year from now saying we were crazy. We
That's
were wrong.
100% right.
Yeah.
100%
It's
right.
the high stakes league, right? It's very high profile, and just to say that you're right. Let's just say like 5 years ago when Tyrese Halliburton was taken in, like the teens pick,
I
right?
think it was 13,
13
something
or
around there. I think so. Might be
12,
wrong.
or I think he was 12, but like even then, like he was still taken past 10 in a lot of like rookie drafts. And just to say you drafted someone like that, and if he could replicate that with Bennett Sturts in a group of analysts, man, I mean, to Josh's point, that is super impressive if he does pull that off.
That's right. Shout out to you, MT Lazarus. Absolute shout out. But we're going to move down just a few spots here. We're going to talk about another young player, different type of player. This is more of a wing type player. And that's going to be Keyshawn George, picked by Yahoo's very own Dan Titus. So we're going to talk about one of the big dogs picks here. Like we mentioned earlier, Josh, the Wizards players are just so freaking exciting for whatever reason it is. So, how excited are you about Keyshawn George?
Like I said in the article, man, I called Washington the Wizards sleeping beast of the East just because they're kind of built exactly like how OKC was in terms of what they're valuing out of their players, and Keyshawn George is exactly that. I was a little bit lower on him coming into the draft. I completely flipped the other way. I think honestly, he was the most impressive of the Wizards rookies last year. The field goal percentage isn't there in terms of efficiency, but if you look at the 3-point attempt rate, a lot of his shots were outside of the 3-point line. That kind of drag his thing down, especially with how he started from the year in terms of being super inefficient from three. A lot of that is kind
Josh,
of corrected.
just to chime in, didn't Keyshawn George shoot like 22 threes one game that went viral?
Oh yeah, dude. And he was I made a post about it. This dude shot like 10% from three over his like first month. It was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. Yeah, he was launching, man. I think they told him, but that's the type of confidence. Like I said it in a different thread, but I'd rather have one of these young guys shoot 3 for 12 than 1 for 4 because I want you to keep shooting, especially as you're growing, as long as you're making progress and as long as you. But as a rookie, what really stood out to me was his defense. Like he did stuff to Giannis and Barnes that you really don't see rookies doing. Um, and that just showed to me that he's got like what you said, Mitch, is he's got a dog mentality. He really like rises up to the occasion, and then watching him in America Cup and really tapping more into his self-creation bag, and that's seeing some of that translate into the preseason level now against NBA level athletes. Like obviously it's different. You're making plays like that happen in America Cup, but if you're being able to do so and kind of get that space creation, bump off, initiate, and finish through contract like he did against Jalen Duren today, like it's really starting to raise some flags in terms of the leap that he can make in year two. So really love this pick by Big Dog Dan Titus. Good value at 103.
I like it
He
too, and
was
he's just one of those guys that does everything. Braxton and I are huge fans of Keyshawn George. We used him a lot in redraft last year, like an industry pickup. And in addition to just a little bit of those rebounds, those assists, those 3 pointers, just the stocks numbers, he'd have some games where he'd go crazy. Like there was a 6 block game that he had last year. He had a 4 steal game earlier on in this preseason. He's just like you said, he's a dog. The defense is a selling point, but he's not like a Matisse Thybulle type guy. He's totally competent on offense and really is starting to become, hopefully, a much more reliable source of stocks moving forward. And definitely just looks like he's for sure in the plans of the Wizards moving forward as well.
Yeah, I was deathly afraid of Keyshawn George in, fantasy playoffs. This dude was getting like 5 stocks a game consistently, and I was like, holy shit, like you can't keep up with that production. And, early on in these Wizards preseason games, he's really beating out Cam Whitmore for that starting small forward, power forward spot. So he's pretty locked in for the
Oh,
Bilal
give
Wizards.
being
me
hurt too.
Yeah, give me
Bilal
Keyshawn
has been hurt,
over
yeah.
Whitmore all day. I do like Bilal a lot, probably a little bit more. So maybe the spot's still his, but definitely give me Keyshawn over Whitmore all day long. Okay, next one before we move into a couple of deeper picks that I want to discuss. This is another one that's still within the top 150 here. One of Mitchell's favorite guys, Reed Shepherd. So shout out to NBA Prospecting. He took Reed Shepherd at pick 112. Fill us in here, Mitch. How do you feel about this pick at 112 for NBA Prospecting?
This was bang on value for NBA prospecting. I have Reed Shepherd near the top 55 in our recent update. This was our similar range of where we had him when we first released our 2024 dynasty rankings with that class, and he really cemented himself back up given his preseason play. And this was also before the Fred VanVleet news. So NBA prospecting would not have been able to grab him at 112, but because of what happened, or because of this was before what happened with Fred, he was able to snag him at a great price. And with Reed, what you're really excited about is those active hands. He's going to give you really great steal numbers. He's also going to give you great block numbers for his size. So he's just good at really timing players, especially when they go up for a layup, similar to how like a Derek White, he'll just like slap it off your knee and it'll count as a block. Reed Shepherd's a similar type player who can really anticipate that timing whenever his opponent goes up for a layup. And then Reed Shepherd also has really great efficiency numbers. We haven't seen that in his rookie campaign just because he was never really able to get consistent minutes as the Rockets were looking to contend, who eventually got the second seed for the Western Conference. But now that he has a pretty solid role in store for him next season, I expect those efficiency numbers to boost up similar to what we've seen in Kentucky. And then also, he's a great three-point shooter. So we're going to see that three-point volume pop right back up, especially since, you know, Dylan Brooks and Jalen Green departed for the Houston Rockets. You know, those not to say that they're great three-point shooters, but those were their three-point shooters for Houston. So along with Fred, who's out for the year, Reed is going to need to fill that void for shooting. So super excited, and I'm really glad for NBA prospecting. Had a couple conversations with him about this league and about some other leagues in Dynasty. So I'm glad that he was able to capitalize on, unfortunately, the Fred VanVleet injury.
So one disclaimer I will make, as you can see the picks as well as the team names here, many of us, this was an instruction we got from Noah Rubin, which was clever. Many of us have our team name, have our Twitter handle within our team name. So if you're looking at our screen here, seeing us go through all these picks, any of these ats you see, these are our Twitter handles. So follow everybody that you see on here. You see Point Made, us, NBA Prospecting Twitter handle, Dre Modisha, Dizzle Dynasty Twitter handles on here, Raphael J, DBC Jason. As we go through here, you see a Twitter handle, give it a follow if you are on Twitter specifically for NBA and Dynasty basketball content. All right, so now we're going to move a little bit deeper into the draft here, because for whatever reason, I'm always obsessed with talking about deep league picks. We're going to go to pick 233. So like I mentioned at the very start of this video, we are full of content creators. However, there's not a massive amount of regularly posting Dynasty content creators. So we needed about 5-ish people to fill out the last spot. So we all went with really trusted league mates that we played with before and we know are savvy with what they do in Dynasty. My invite was Mr. Black, who made this pick at 233 of Peyton Watson. His name is Matt. And after being my invited guest, Matt, you son of a bitch, you sniped me on Peyton Watson 2 picks ahead of when I was going to go. Great pick by Matt here. Peyton Watson in our angle ranking is is ranked at 163. So this is almost 100 spots worth of value here. I saw you guys tweet about him recently, Josh. He's drawing rave reviews in training camp. He actually last year had guard eligibility on all platforms, which 1.4 blocks per game out of the forward spot is great, but out of the guard spot is almost unheard of. He doesn't have it currently, but if he does get it back, I think that boosts his value even more for me. So hope he does get that back this year. We'll see. But even if he doesn't get that guard eligibility back, I really like what we've seen from him. I think there's a real chance his points per game gets to the double digits and he starts putting in more than one three-pointer per game as well. He guards the other team's best player. Advanced stats shows that he's one of the most versatile defenders in the league. And watch just the Nuggets in general, but watch him closely as well as Christian Braun, because we're approaching the last few days of a window where the Nuggets need to be extending offers of extensions for Watson and Braun. So if Watson gets locked into a long-term contract with the Denver Nuggets, I like this value even more for Mr. Black here and just Peyton Watson as a dynasty asset in general. Is there anything anybody wanted to add on Peyton Watson?
Yeah, like what you were saying, man, he brought his 3-point percentage up about 5 or 6% last year, and he's just trending in the right direction, doing what he needs to do while still being that really good, versatile defensive wing guy that can play at that 3 or the 4 spot as he's getting a little bit stronger. Really good on the perimeter. His blocks kind of speak for themselves, like you said. So it's a really good value right there for P. Watt.
Very good. Very, very good. All right. Last guy we're going to cover before we close out today. This is another deep pick. This might be somebody that you have not heard of before. This pick was made by Iman Castles or Cassell. I don't know. It's spelled the way Sam Cassell says it, so maybe I'll say it that way. Sorry if I mispronounced it. But Iman picked Magoon Gwath at 285. Magoon Gwath is a center forward from San Diego State. Shout out to the Aztecs. We don't have a current rank for him because we don't, at least yet, rank 2026 or like future draft classes within our rankings. We usually incorporate them as the draft happens. But this is one of my favorite sleepers to go from unknown to first round pick. So let me just give an example of some context here. Not to say that these guys are the same player, but Yannick Niederhauser was picked 30th this year by the Clippers. And he's ranked 277 for us. So Magoon Guath at 285 is pretty close to that. And I think Guath is much better as a prospect than somebody like Niederhauser is for who the Clippers just picked. So he's a redshirt freshman. He was a sophomore last year. He tried to enter the transfer portal, but ended up staying at SDSU. I like that choice because I think they're going to be pretty good this year. In the last 10 years, so since the 2009-2010 season, Magoon Guath is in the top 25 of block rate for all NCAA players between that period to now. The top of that list is famously Walker Kessler. Hassan Whiteside is right below him. The person that Guath is directly in front of in rank is Jaren Jackson Jr., former Defensive Player of the Year. Guath took less than 2 3-pointer attempts per game, but he shot 37% on those attempts. I'd love to see him bump that up to 4 or 5 3-point attempts per game. He's a 7-footer, he's mobile, he could shoot, and has this insane block percentage. So this is just sky-high potential for real-life and 9-category production. The only reason you haven't heard of him, he's not a true freshman, and he's not at one of those blue blood programs. He's at SDSU. However, make no mistake, SDSU is a legit basketball program. They produce Kawhi Leonard. They produce a number of other professionals. And the conference that they're in is supposed to get a little bit tougher competition-wise moving forward. They usually make some noise in March Madness, and well, not last year, but the year prior, they were in the Final Four. So very confident in his development there to potentially become a pretty easy first rounder. And I know that there was some praise of this pick when it was first made. I believe it was Brian from Dizzle Dynasty was saying, you know, that Magoon Guath pick can really, really pay off in about a year or two. So that is definitely one I wanted to cover, and just somebody I wanted to make the Dynasty community familiar with ahead of time. This someone will probably be like a late teens, early 20s pick, in my opinion, come, you know, around the June time of 2026 once we're getting into this next draft cycle. So very, very exciting player, very unique type of player who fits what the NBA is really looking for moving forward. All right, so that does it. We discussed our teams. We each discussed a few of the picks that we like. So if you like Dynasty Basketball, make sure to subscribe to us and make sure to just subscribe to Josh as well. So fill them in. Josh, where can they find you on Twitter? Where can they find your website?
Yes, sir. Hit us up, pointmadebasketball.com, or hit us up on Twitter, pointmadeball. Try to reply to whatever I can on Twitter. We got Pointmade Fantasy on Twitter as well. And then we got Liam, Pointmade Liam on Twitter, who does a lot of our draft stuff. So hit us up whenever. We're glad to talk hoops with anyone. Thank you guys for the invite, man. Super happy.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on, man. Like I said, if you are a fool, if you like NBA Twitter and you are not following Point Made Basketball already, quality content that they pump out, and they always got highlight videos attached too, which I think is a very underrated aspect of what they do. So definitely give them a follow. We here on YouTube are on the road to 500 subscribers. So if you are not subscribed already, please do so. It really helps us out a ton. Spread the word of this league. It is known as the Ultimate Devy League. You'll hear plenty of other people talk about it. Like I said, Matt Lawson and Noah Rubin have a collaboration video out together talking about their team. I know both of the guys at Dizzle Dynasty did a full write-up of their squad, so check that out as well too. And I'm sure you'll see plenty of other the content creators in this league come out with some write-ups of their own. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching today, and we will see you next time.